Krunal Nayak, today's podcast host for My Australian Journey. I just would like to introduce about today's guest. Our today's guest is Mrs. Ruchi Gupta. Ruchi Gupta is a business strategist. She is a founder and a director of the Launchpad company. And the Launchpad company itself can help any businesses in Australia to strategize their businesses. So if you're a business owner and if you want to progress through your business career in Australia, if you're a migrant, if you're a non-migrant, if you're Australian, doesn't matter. Her guidance can, her coaching can, and her strategies can help you with how to grow your business in Australia. So let's know more about Ruchi Gupta and herself and her Australian journey in today's episode. So I welcome Ruchi Gupta. Hello, everybody. This is Krunal here again, and I welcome Ruchi Gupta. And so, hi, Ruchi. How are you today?
Good, Krunal. How are you? Thank you for having me.
That's great. It's my entire pleasure is all mine and our viewers. So thank you for joining us first of all, and taking precious time out of your busy schedule. And yes, we can't thank you enough for that. So thank you again for joining us. And so let me start with the question about your business, the Launchpad company. So, and you're a business strategist, and you are a project director and a founder of the company as well. So,
Yes.
being a woman, being an entrepreneur yourself, how difficult was that to build a company in Australia?
Not difficult at all. I think if you're passionate about what you want to do and you have an idea and a niche in the market, and you persevere, it comes down to persevering as well on a personal front as well, because it takes a lot out of you to set up a business. I worked as a project manager for many years. So I was doing, financially, it was a really good job. To give up a job that is secure financial means and start something of your own obviously takes a bit of push. And that's why I say, that perseverance, that passion is very, very important in what you do to get you up and
That's
running.
Yep, that's great. So those entrepreneurs who are in Australia who are either Australian or migrants themselves. So let's say if they have a thought, okay, I want to start business. So how did you plan out? So as from workplace to directly to the business, have you just transitioned like all in, or you just initially started part time and then you moved full time to the business?
No, so I actually was on a career break. So I had actually decided to take some time off from my corporate role to look after my son, who was at that point 2 years old. And I just wanted to spend time as a young family. So I took a career break. And while I was on the career break, I was actually helping a friend set up their business. And my father also has a business in the engineering space. So I was helping friends and family with setting up their business. And I thought, hey, this is a really good idea, because small businesses that want, when people have ideas about what they want to do, but they don't find the support. There's not a lot of support for small businesses or startups, entrepreneurs. People have brilliant ideas, and I've come across some amazing business owners that have just started out, and they have amazing ideas. It's just that sometimes you don't find the support. And I thought, you know what? I think there's a lot of scope here. So let's try. Because at that point in time, I had about 17 years behind corporate experience.
Wow.
And working as a project manager, you sort of get the idea and sense of how to structure a business and how to run it operationally. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to use that skill set and really just give back to the community. So that's where it started. So the journey of starting my own consultancy probably came about 6 months after I actually went on a career break. So it wasn't planned; it was completely accidental. But here we are, 3.5 years on, still operating, growing. We have now got a team of about 3 people working under me. So, good times.
Perfect. So tell me about this. So let's say, okay, first of all, you're a business strategist. So a lot of our audience, a lot of our viewers don't know what is the business strategist do. So could you please explain your role as a business strategist, like why someone need a business strategist?
So whether you call them a business strategist, you call them a business mentor, I mean, you could call me anything. My role is basically to go and help startups or people with ideas, help them really turn that idea into a flourishing business. So when I say a business strategist, that's more in the space of me helping businesses set up, whether it's, how do we structure the organization, how do we operationalize an idea, how do we commercialize a product that you have. I actually also work as a business mentor with the Victorian Chamber of Commerce and Small Business Mentoring Service. So there's a lot of that work as well. So businesses that are already up and running sometimes need a little bit of that push, or they've got to a point where they've become stagnant and they need to find ways of scaling their business, right? That's the time they would come to me as a business mentor or strategist, and I would help them explore their market further. So whether it's doing competitor analysis, seeing what's out there in the market, understanding what their value proposition should be, what products or services they should be delivering, where they should be focusing their marketing. So all of that in a big bubble, that's what we would call business strategy, and that's where we come in as a team. So whether it's established businesses, new businesses, it's all about growing and scaling.
Perfect. So let's talk about your business. So the Launchpad Co. So what work the company itself can do, and what is the core business? Let's say if someone needs a business strategy or someone reach out to Launchpad Co. So how do we do that?
So at the Launchpad Co, we specialize. We're business consultants. We specialize in business strategy, project management, and training, and also grants. Grants is something that took off during COVID. So just to go back a little bit to give you a bit of background. So when I started this business, it was actually a couple of months just before the world pandemic. So we had started the business when I started the business. I was working as a business consultant. And my role was basically to go into established organizations and organizations that needed support, needed to understand how they improve their processes, their systems, their resources. My role was to go and do a deep dive analysis of the business and provide opportunities where the business could improve, both financially and structurally. So then the pandemic hit, and all of a sudden there were a lot of companies, a lot of businesses that went out of business, and a lot of people couldn't afford a business consultant. But at the same time, I saw a gap in the market and an opportunity. There were a lot of businesses that were struggling financially, and there were a lot of grants and government funding, stimulus packages that were coming out at the time. So I sort of jumped at it because I had a background in that. So, and it's all about business case preparation. Grants, tenders are all about business case preparation. That's what I've been doing for many years as a project manager. So I sort of jumped at it, at the opportunity. And that actually gave us a really good leeway into a second stream within the business. So while we were focusing on business strategy and project implementation, we then moved into this grant and tender space as well, which, to be honest, is more than 50% of our consulting work at the moment.
Great, absolutely great. So let's say if somebody needs your consultation or someone needs your guidance, so how they reach out to you? Is there any process, or how do they do that?
Easy. Just drop me an email, advisor@thelaunchpadco.com.au. We also have a website. So either way, look, the emails come to me. I've got consultants that work for me depending on what your need is. We only work with the best. So I've got the employees that I've got, they've got many years of experience. So whether it's grants, whether it's tender, whether it's consulting support, we can help in all regards.
Excellent. So and that raised another question. So let's say a small business or some solopreneurs or a big business, huge business, large business, what community you serve? So do you have a certain requirements that your business has to be in this category to get help as a business strategist, or any business can get into it?
Not at all. I've never put a caveat on anything. We have worked with solopreneurs that are just starting out their journeys up to big settled organizations, established organizations. For example, like I'm doing some work with Uniting at the moment. I've done some work with University of Melbourne, for example. There's Glowtech Process Solutions is another great. It's a multinational corporation in the engineering space. So we've done work with small to large clients, and you're talking about multi-million, billion-dollar businesses as well. So we've never really had a caveat. It's really where the need is, and people have reached out to us. We've been quite lucky in that, even though we started operationalizing through COVID, we have a very strong network around us, and a lot of our work actually comes from referrals of clients that we've serviced, and they've passed our details on to other clients or other friends. So we've actually got a pretty good referral base that way.
Great. Excellent. So a referral base is great for any business, I would say, especially consulting and service business, isn't it?
Yeah.
I need your view on this. So let's say if there is a business who is starting out, a new business that is solopreneur or a very small team. So why do they need a business strategy? What is the requirement? And look, I have seen entrepreneurs, and myself, I'm an entrepreneur. So at some point they feel like I am clear about my idea. I am clear about how the operation works. I'm blah blah blah. They have their own little mindset. So how to convince them? Not convince them, but just wrap this podcast. How to pass the message to those solopreneurs or small businesses that yes, you need a business strategist?
The short answer is to get clarity. So
Right.
even to give you a bit of background, even as a business strategist myself, I also have a mentor. It's
wow.
always good to have an external person that you look forward to, that you can be open about your vision, about your objectives, about your challenges. And having a business strategist or a mentor always helps you get that clarity. What I do with businesses that are just starting out, I love doing whiteboard sessions. So you'll always see a whiteboard in the background. So I always love to draw. Okay, tell me, what are your fears and your challenges? Tell me what your strengths are. Let's work on these. Let's find a common ground. Let's find what the market needs. And then, we come up with ideas of, okay, this is where you need to pitch. This is how you pitch your service. Or in some cases, I've gone into organizations, we've looked at their value proposition and we said, actually, you know what? You have a wider skill set. So maybe we need to look at doing this and service that you're not doing at the moment. So it comes down to getting that clarity. So for a lot of business owners, they have the idea in their mind. But the thing is, they're working 10 jobs. They're working as an admin, they're working as a salesperson, they're working as a CEO. And when you're working in 10 roles, you're wearing 10 different hats, it's very hard to get that clarity. Having someone sit with you and ask you the difficult questions, help guide you through the process, I find that it's given a lot of clarity to a lot of people. And I personally am a big advocate of having a mentor.
Yes. Me too. Yes. It's mandatory in that sense that if you having an idea is a different story, and having a vision and having a growth strategy, that's a completely different thing. Your idea could be worth for yourself, but maybe your family, but that couldn't be worth for the market, right? So you have
Correct.
to see the market, and that's something that you make everybody visualize that fact. Okay, this is the market, this is how it works, and all that. So yes.
Yeah, and you have to see, when you have an idea, you're very close to the idea, and you want to see it succeed. Fair enough, but sometimes there just isn't a market for it, or there may be a market, you need to tweak the service a little bit. So when I started my business, we went through iterations and iterations and iterations until I got to a point where I was happy with how the business is at the moment. So like I said, we started as a consultancy, then went into training, then went into grants. So slowly and steadily, I've had to retweak the business as it currently stands as well. So someone who shows you the mirror, asks you the difficult questions, pushes you to be honest, and sort of pushes you to do your homework, I think it's really crucial.
You're right. So that makes me ask you this question. So what is the startup market in Australia? Like we have heard about currently overseas market like China or India or US. There are a lot of startups are happening overseas. What about Australia? Do we see a lot of startups, or just because of COVID, it's a little bit slowing down? How's the market?
No, I think if anything, COVID has actually helped really shake the market. And there's some amazing ideas coming out now. We're growing. I'm seeing a lot of technology formations, and it's really interesting because technology that you do not even think exists in today's time and date. There's so much work going on in the background. I have worked with so many businesses that are doing app developments and service. There was a client of mine I was helping with telehealth. Then this was in COVID times. Giving access to parents overseas to having global access to global health. So, say for example, your parents are in India, but you want them to have a second opinion. Getting them access to global doctors, things like that. It's amazing. The sort of ideas at the moment are amazing. And I think over the last few decades, people have become more business savvy as well, if I can say that. People have understood the challenges that come with running a business, but people are willing to take that risk. And I think, as we're getting to a new generation now. Millennials, I don't think will be cut out for long-term 9-to-5 jobs. I think there'll be a higher percentage of them wanting to start their own businesses because they are fearless and they are wanting to take up a challenge. I started my business when in my mid-30s, but I feel like, and that was important because I had that background, of 17 years of corporate experience, but I feel like a lot of people now don't wait for that. You risk and you learn. It's like you see a lot of these big millionaires that are running big organizations worldwide. A lot of them don't even actually have college degrees, right? Because they have taken the risk. They found an idea. They found a niche, and
and that's it. It worked for them as well. Basically,
it worked, but to be honest, behind every successful idea, there would be about 5 ideas that didn't work.
Maybe, you're right. You're right on that track as well. Yes, absolutely.
So one thing I've learned is you have to be fearless to some extent. You can't let failure get to you. It will, it does, but that's the beauty of it. You have to learn to get back up and get moving.
Great. That's a great piece of advice, I would say, for everybody who's starting out. So, on that note, what is the best piece of advice you give to someone who has an idea, who wants to get into the market, but still quite hesitant or maybe reluctant to get into it, and following their ideas, following their dreams or passion, I would say. So, what's your piece of advice to those migrants or non-migrants, I would say? What's your words for them?
I would say do it, take the leap. But if you are hesitant, 2 things. You really need to study your market. Don't go into it half-cooked because you're setting yourself up for failure. Understand who your target market is, who your competitors are, and where you sit. You need to find that niche for yourself. And you need to realize that things will not happen instantly. It took me almost 2 years before I started, getting some traction because it takes time for any brand to set up and be running. And that takes time. So be patient. If you're nervous, maybe start doing it as a part-time thing until you make it to a point where it can self-sustain financially for you. But when you're working in a part-time, don't treat it like a side hustle. Put your heart and soul into it, because if that's what you want to do, if you treat it like a side hustle, it'll stay a side hustle. You'll never get it to a point of, it becomes a flourishing, self-sufficient business. So you have to treat it as a self-sufficient business from the start. Put your heart and soul into it, and see what happens. And surround yourself with a good network as well.
So don't go with the freelancer mindset. Go with the business mindset. Is that right?
Correct. And if you have a network of support around you, I find that really makes or breaks businesses, especially for migrants. If you're new to the country, you're wanting to do something, it's always good to have, a few people that are your brand advocates behind you. One, they push you to do better. They have connections that can help you. And also they help you keep you honest and accountable as well.
From my previous experiences, and I would like to ask you this question just because you raised it. How important is the network for anyone who is in Australia? So whether migrant or non-migrant, I would say, what is the importance of network? How you can explore the network, and what is the ways to build a good network?
We're lucky in today's day and age, there's a lot of networking groups. and there's a lot of networking opportunities. If you pick up Eventbrite, for example, every day there would be some networking events happening somewhere or other. Networking is very, very important. And look, I would like to think that's more true in a service business than a product business. But equally, networking is very important because, like I said, it gets you accountability partners. It taps you into other people's networks. It builds your brand advocates. So, like in our business, for example, I get a lot of my work comes through referrals. And that's what I have earned. It's not always about the money. I have earned that respect in the industry and built those friendships that people are comfortable sending their clients my way, right? And that comes with networking. As daunting as networking is, going into a room of complete strangers, it is important. And once you find your tribe of people that you like to network with, it does wonders for you. What I say to people, though, my 2 cents worth here, don't go into networking thinking that you want to get a sale. If you become a pushy salesperson at a networking event, you push people away too quickly. You need to go into these events and you need to find a common ground. So what is this issue this person's trying to solve, and where can I jump in and help them? But networking is very important. I feel like it's having those brand advocates without actually hiring a sales team. And when you get referrals, when people refer clients to you, that is a testament in itself, right?
It is.
Of the work
Yeah.
you're doing.
Yeah. So migrants, let's say for the migrants, what is so a lot of migrants I meet. So initially when they come to Australia, it's really hard for them to build the network, and they struggle for greater networking things. So let's say Eventbrite or LinkedIn, and these are the main sources of networking, I would say. But still, is there something I'm missing out for the networking, or what could be a good idea for the migrant? As a migrant, like I'm new in the country, I don't know who's here or what to do, where to go. I just tried Eventbrite or LinkedIn, but no one's accepting my requests and all that. So how do they network as a migrant? Because they don't see for the migrants, the biggest struggle is to first is English. You know English, but like you came from the different country, there's different accents, different dialects happening here, and just getting into that cohort of people, tribe of the people, it's to find the tribe is also a challenge, right? So how a migrant can work towards it?
Look, again, social media has done wonders, or not, however you want to look at it. But I would start, look, as a migrant to a new country, because look, when I migrated, I was really young. I was only 10 years old. But it was a big cultural shock. So I completely understand. Coming from and it's not a language barrier as such, in that, India is a pretty, it's a beautiful country. We speak beautiful English, which, so more than the language, I think it was more a cultural shock for me personally when I moved. Just the lifestyle and the etiquettes were slightly different, and just the mannerisms, and it was just a bit of a so I actually
Different.
moved
It was
to New
different.
Zealand.
It was different. Not good or bad. It was different, right?
It was different. So when
It's
I
not.
actually migrated to New Zealand first. And
Okay.
back in the day, there was only one Indian grocery store in that particular town. There was one shop that would hire out cassettes. They had cassettes back then, not even DVDs.
Yeah.
Would only be open for a few hours on the weekend. So that was a cultural shock. You're coming to a country where everyone speaks English. Everyone lives slightly differently than what we're used to. Like in India, like your neighbors are all your family, right?
Yes, of
You
course.
go out, you play street cricket every evening. That's what we did.
Yeah.
We grew up in that community. Here, like you would not see anyone after 5 o'clock.
No,
right?
no one.
And we were always warned about strangers. And I remember playing badminton with my brother one day out in the front lawn, and we had a couple of New Zealanders stop and say hello to us. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I should be talking to you. You speak a different language. You're coming across as very friendly. I don't know, am I like a danger here? So that's what I mean by a cultural shock. It wasn't,
I understand. I get it.
Yeah. So Like, coming back to the
Yeah,
question. Sorry, I
correct.
got
No,
digressed.
that's okay. That's okay. I'll come to
Um,
this migration part later on. Yes.
yeah, no, no, no. So look, as a migrant, I understand that there are quite a lot of complexities. Whether you're coming by yourself or with a family, there are a lot of good local Facebook groups now. So, if you pick up like the Point Cook community, there is a Facebook group. Bandura, there's a Facebook group. In the city, there's Facebook groups. A lot of them are ethnic groups as well. So, at the Indian community, for example, or the Filipino community, for example. I think that's always a very good place to start. And I'm seeing a lot of people now becoming very vocal about, I'm new to the country, I'm looking to make some friendships. And likewise, a lot of people that have been established here are extending that welcoming hand. There's a lot of groups now. If you look at Meetup, for example, Meetup is a great app. Obviously, do your due diligence in terms of safety and all of that. But there's a lot of Meetup groups, so like badminton groups, for example. There's a lot of Indian groups, for example. There's a lot of cricket associations, things like that, where people just casually meet, and that's slowly how someone would find their tribe. And I think it comes with that confidence. As slowly you start meeting people, you build that confidence. Business networking is a different beast in itself. Um, it's a different strategy. I mean, if that's what you want, there's a lot of business networking groups. Although I don't know people in the business networking group are looking for friendships as such. So two different things, I guess. But there are plenty of opportunities for networking and building friendships and relationships and business partnerships in Australia. I think we're very lucky that way.
You're right. Absolutely right. So let's move on to your migration part now. So
Yes.
how long you been in Australia? First question comes in my mind is.
Oh, you're gonna ask me my age, aren't you? I've been in Australia about 20 years.
Wow, wow.
But
All
I was in
right.
New Zealand for
And
a while before that.
so
Um,
when you migrated outside of your home country,
Mid 90s.
mid 90s, and how old were you at that point?
So you're asking me my age. I was 10 at the time.
Then at the time. All right. Okay.
No,
And when you came
I
to
was 10.
Australia, you stayed a longer time in New Zealand, or you just moved straight away to Australia after moving to New Zealand?
We were there for a few years, about 5, 6 years, and then we
Right.
moved to Australia.
Question. So when you migrated to Australia, you must be in your teenage, right?
I was, yes.
Yep. So tell me about this. What is the main difference when you move? So we're not talking about India when you move from India to New Zealand. When you move to New Zealand to Australia, did you find any differences between these two countries?
Not a lot, to be honest. New Zealand
Yeah.
and Australia are very, very similar.
Mm-hmm.
The initial cultural shock came from India to New Zealand, but
Right.
no, not really. Very, very similar. Very similar.
Great. So, see, I haven't had any guest who spent their childhood in Australia, teenage in Australia or New Zealand. So, this is something I wanted to ask, and something we are trying to start a next segment for those who raised in Australia as a, who migrated as a child and raised in Australia. So, how is the teenage culture? How is the behavior that we expect as a parent? So let's say I'm a parent, I bring my child here who raised 10 years in India and now they came here. So as a child, when you come to this country, go to the school, make new friends, how difficult is that for a new child? For adults it's extremely hard. So I imagine for child it's really difficult. So could you please explain that?
I think you're right. Yes, you are right. It is hard for kids, but it comes down to that confidence. I struggled very, very severely, actually. I was hurt quite severely. But again, this is going back to when I moved to New Zealand. New Zealand wasn't very multicultural back then. I was, I think, one of the 4 Indian or non-New Zealand students in my school. I faced a lot of bullying back then. We're talking in the 90s. A lot of bullying because skin color and the way I spoke English, the dialect, is different. But when I moved to Australia, because I was much older, Australia is a lot more multicultural that way. A lot of the schools in Australia are multicultural. Like my son goes to a Catholic school. It has so many Indians. It has so many Asian students. It's beautiful. It's beautiful to see that multiculturalism. Um, I think I'm going to take a slight twist on this question. I think where we as parents can support our kids is giving them the confidence, especially if you're a new migrant and your child is just starting to go to school. We as parents, as Indian parents, it's inbuilt into us that we stress, we get anxious about our kids. Is he or she making friends? Do they have someone to play with? Are they studying well? Does a teacher like them? Are they comfortable? We worry about a lot of things. Kids are very resilient, very resilient. They make friends very quickly. What you need to do is not harp on about, do you have friends? The more you keep saying that, the more the child subconsciously starts thinking that way. What I have learned from my own experience is let the child be, right? Teach them to be confident. Teach them how they should go and talk to somebody about, hey, can I play with you? Playing basketball, can I play with you? And slowly start making friendships that way, one-on-one. And it's not necessarily bad. This is advice to parents. It's not necessarily bad if your child is playing by themselves. And I'll tell you why. A lot of people in today's day and age, there's a lot of people that suffer from anxiety and depression. You know why? Because they have over the years become people pleasers. They like to surround themselves with friends. They like to have a lot of social group. And they like to put a lot of pressure on themselves, even if they're not happy, just to be stuck in friendships and relationships that don't actually mean anything for them, right? Just because they want to be popular. And I'm saying this because being Indian myself, that's sort of what I always thought as well. And I had to break that chain. It's got, and my parents have been wonderful, wonderful in supporting me and my brother build our confidence. And that's what I'm doing with my kids. I've said to my kids, you know what? If someone is not being nice to you, you walk away. It's actually more important that you play by yourself than be in a friendship that is detriment to your health. So give your kids some time. They have come from a culture that is very different from Australia. Not good, not bad. They're just very different. They're different countries.
It's just different. You're right. Yeah.
Give them space. Give them time to adjust. Don't talk to them about, do you have friends? What did the teacher say? Are you studying? Because as Indians, we focus a lot on studying.
We have that pressure. Yeah, we create that pressure on the kids, right? You're absolutely right.
We do. And you see in the West, for example, there's a lot of coaching institutes in the West because that's how we think. But you know what? I read this somewhere, and it's so true. Don't pressurize your kid to have 90+% marks in their exams.
Right.
Because that means all they're doing is studying. If you have a kid who's getting between 75 to 80%, that means they're studying and they have time for extracurricular activities.
You're right.
And to be honest, extracurricular activities is where you make a lot of those friendships as well. So I think as a parent, coming back to your question, sorry, I digress a lot.
No, that's okay. No. Keep going.
So it comes down to, as a parent, build your child's confidence. Don't harp on about, making friends and adjusting. It'll happen with time. Kids are very, very resilient. If not today, it will happen. And extracurricular activities are very good in the sense that they actually are a good outlay of emotion as well. So if your child is feeling scared or nervous at school or frustrated at school, going and kicking a ball in the park will help them take all that anger and frustration out.
Right. Absolutely right. Yep. So as a parent, pretty great piece of advice for the parents who are new migrants. And see, I have seen the families where parents are very poor or they barely speak English, especially mothers. Father or maybe the main applicant who was in the visa application, they are quite fluent in English, but the other parent who's staying home taking care, they are not great at English. And they struggle a lot to teach their kids, like how to teach them, how to guide them at home in English. So let's say study help or something. So for those parents, do you have anything?
Look, there's a lot support groups now. It's just a matter of finding ones that work for you. Local councils have a lot of support groups. Even associations, like I have a client I caught up with today, the Filipino organization in Victoria. Very, very solid organization, that they help support the kids and the elderly within the community. The Indian group is amazing. There's so many different Indian associations that are working with families, that are working with, say, domestic violence victims, that are working with children, with education, things like that. So it's a matter of really looking around and finding that support around you. The first place to start would be the council. And I would say for mums as well as kids, because if you've got mothers who struggle with that confidence or language is a barrier, it's very, very important that they find that tribe around them, of people of support around them. When we moved to New Zealand, I think because of the cultural shock, my parents probably struggled a little bit as well. But I saw them, they're going and making friends. I saw that process of how they would make friends. And I still remember, early on in the first 6 months or so, because there weren't a lot of Indians in the community, you would see an Indian at a supermarket and you'd be like, hey, hi, where are you from?
I guess that too. Yes, you're right.
We do it. We've done it.
Yeah.
So we all do it. But you know what? That's our own mechanism, our defense mechanism, and our own
Yeah.
social upbringing that we do it. And there's no harm with
Yeah.
that. Like I said, a lot of
No.
these Facebook groups, for example, it's lovely to see people extending that support to one another. Let's organize a play day, or let's get the kids to meet, or even for mums, stay-at-home mums, for example, that need support. So it's really just looking in your local community, Facebook groups, the local council websites have a lot of community group listings on. Yeah, get in touch with them, and a lot of these groups are free of cost.
Absolutely, yes, and they can help them, just to get that initial support to get in. Yep, you're right, absolutely right, spot on. So let's say someone has migrated to Australia. So now my second segment of our podcast that goes towards the success. So let's say finding initial job. So when you moved, or when you finish your study, how was did you struggle a lot to find your first job, or it was easy transition for you?
It was a struggle to find a job.
Wow.
It always is, I think, in every field, unless you are an overachiever in university.
That's okay. That will like could be a question from one of viewers as well. So let's say you came in New Zealand at the age of 10. You moved to Australia at the age of 15. So you must have your primary and secondary, most of the part of your primary education in English, right, in Australia. So you've been raised with the culture, Australian culture or New Zealand culture, I would say. So with that, when you 18 or 20, when you finish your uni, you don't have the English problem, you don't have the qualification problem, or you don't have that international accent problem.
It's still very competitive.
What is the struggle? Yeah, tell me about it.
It's still very competitive. The job market is very competitive, but it comes down to your level of experience, your education. Now, if you have studied locally and you understand the local culture, you have a local degree. If you were fortunate enough to do internships during your study, it obviously opens up doors because you have local experience that you can use. When you're coming as a migrant and looking for a new job, sometimes you have to compromise. You will not get the same level of salary. You will not probably get the same jobs. It depends. Again, it depends. I can't make a generalist statement as such. It really depends. If you're an IT professional, for example, we have Infosys, we have Wipro, we have Telstra. We have a lot of large organizations that really welcome immigrant, job seekers because they have the experience behind them, right? So it really comes down to the experience and what you bring to the table. Doctors, on the other hand, there's an issue. There's a logistical issue in that you need a separate certification. So that becomes a challenge in itself. So it really depends job to job, I guess.
Job to job. But see, why I raise this question is because most of my clients or anyone who I speak to as a migrant on a podcast or anyway, they see this, like coming to Australia is easy, or not easy these days, but yeah, back then it was easy, but now it's become a little tough. But yes, government's trying to make it easier. But let's say if it's easy to come to Australia, but when you drop here, when you land in Australia, then first challenge is to find a home and find a job, and a lot of migrants struggle with that. So what the message I want to pass on to them is, it's not the struggle for migrants. They believe that because I'm a migrant, I'm not getting a job, you know. So I just want to, I
Right.
deliberately ask this question to let everybody know that it's not a migrant problem. If you are in Australia, if you're an Australian citizen, if you have that same sort of English level or qualification or degree, then you still struggle to get a job. Am I right?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
did.
yeah, yeah.
I did. Look,
There you go.
it's not
There you go.
any different for a migrant than me. That I studied here. I did my schooling here. It's just the job market is very tough. And it really comes down to your skill set and how you present yourself at interviews and things like that. The good thing is that there are plenty of HR established organizations that help you. If you're a migrant and you're looking for support to land that first job, recruitment agencies are very, very good. Not only will they help you find jobs, but some of them will also help groom you in terms of how to prepare for an interview, how to look for the right job. Sometimes, you might decide that, look, I'm in India, I worked for 20 years in this area, I want to try something different. The beauty of working in Australia, if I can be completely honest here, is that you don't have to be stuck with the same job until you retire. There's a sense that if you studied
Absolutely,
IT,
yes.
you don't have to work in IT until you retire. I have
Forever.
seen
Yeah.
people break partway through and say, no, you know what, I've done that. I want to try something else now. And
Yep.
people here are very forthcoming and loving towards that. I'll tell you, my dad did his MBA in his 50s. And
Wow.
he himself felt like, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? But he persevered. He said, you know
Mm.
what? I really want to do this. And he
Mm.
changed his career. So, and
Wow.
I've seen so many people do that. When I was doing my own master's, I had people in my class that were 40, 50 years old. And they said, we just don't want to do psychology anymore. We want to get into marketing.
Right.
So and it's really encouraging to see. It really
Yep.
challenges the way you think.
Right. And then
Mm.
the is changing a career is not that hard here, right? So yes, of course the responsibilities are there, but still with carrying your responsibilities, you can do it. That's the beauty of this country, I would say. That
That's
myself, I've changed my career and still studying, so yep, I can feel that too. So yep, it is quite, it's not that hard, like back in home country. If I would have been back in home country, I might not be able to do that just because of the social pressure or the earning pressure or
right.
whatever. But here it's not that hard. So yeah, please,
Yeah. It's
we
socially
encourage that.
accepted. Yeah,
Mm.
it's socially accepted here, and plus
Yep,
we have a lot of opportunities. I'm
you're
sure.
right.
I'm not sure if that's the case in India. I haven't worked in India, but
Hmm.
here, like, there's a lot of opportunities if you want to move from one thing to another. It just comes down to justifying it to yourself and being confident with the change yourself.
You're right. So with that many talents, when you've been working in the corporate industry, okay, let me talk about this corporate industry first. So let's say when you get your first job, have you started as a business strategist, or there was a different career you started?
I studied here, and I still started at an admin level. So I was working as a claims admin at a company, and I worked my way up. So I've had jobs in the call center as well. I have done, I've had part-time jobs when I was studying, working at Baker's Delight, for example, and all of that. Slowly built my career up. So I didn't automatically start in project management. That came to me because I saw an opportunity and I jumped at it. Probably 3.5 years after I started working full time. And my manager, the lady who became my manager, gave me the opportunity. And look, that started a whole new career for me. And from there, I've gone from a process improvement officer. When I left the corporate role, I was working as a project manager at a leading insurance company. Um, so it's finding the opportunities, and it's not a bad thing to look for opportunities and jump at them. Of course, there's a risk, I say this to my husband as well. I say to a lot of people, don't get complacent in a role. If you're in your comfort zone, you're not learning. And within reason, you should challenge yourself.
Yes, yes, yes. That's absolutely necessary. Yeah, absolutely. So if you are doing something, then yes, you have to be focused. You have to be determined. So yes, that bring me another question here. So let's say when you started your career. So what was your bachelor's degree? Graduation, I would say.
So I did my master's in marketing.
Masters
I
in
have not
marketing.
worked a day in marketing. I did.
That was I was trying to ask you, like, have you worked in marketing? So okay, right. So you have done your
I
masters,
have.
and then you started a different career, and in the different career you found another path, and then you started to this business strategy career. Wow, that's great.
Yes, I
That's
did my
absolutely
bachelor's in
fantastic.
business, but that
Hmm.
was many, many, many years ago. And
Right.
theory is very different from practical.
Yeah.
And what I say to people, you can pay $50,000 to do an MBA degree, or
Yeah.
on the contrary, you can start a business. It'll teach you exactly all that plus more in a fraction of that time it takes you to complete an MBA.
Right. Okay. Hmm.
You know,
So
when,
starting out a
when
business is more impactful than having an MBA, right?
being practical, when you face those issues practically, that you have to, you've come up with an issue that you have to solve. No book will teach you that, how to do it practically. It comes with experience. So actually, when I wanted to do my master's, every university asks you for at least 3 to 5 years of experience. And I was studying with some students that came directly from their bachelor's to master's. I'm not sure how they got in, but there must have been some sort of a leeway. And that's fine. But there was a world of difference because I went in to do my master's after I worked for about 5 years. And I had friends who went straight from their bachelor's. And when it came to doing assignments, you see how much the experience talks. It just makes you more confident. Gives
Yes.
you real life problems to work with, and
Correct.
your learning is just so much more.
Yep. Yep. It is a different level. It's like if you have worked in an industry for 5 years, you're sitting at a different level. So have you worked during your study at all?
Yes. So when I did my masters, I was working full time and studying part time.
Right. Do you promote that? Like, let's say the kids who are currently studying, not international students, the local students, like who just came out a year 12, starting their bachelor's or masters, should they, is that should that be a focus that they study and work together, or they can straight away, finish your study and then start working? What is the difference between those two?
I like the idea of studying and working um, at the same time, only because it gives you perspective. Depending on what you're studying, I think it's very important to take a step back. I think it's very important students who come here to have a part-time job, whether it's a corporate job, whether it's a call center job, whether it's a job in retail, hospitality, whatever it is. I think it's very important for their learning. There's a steep learning curve with living by yourself, making your own earning, learning to hold your place in society. I think there's a lot to learn. It's almost like a parallel university. When you're working, living on your own, it teaches you so much. I'm a big advocate of yes, you should work. If you can land a role in the field that you're studying, even better, but doesn't always happen. And I'm going to be honest here, it doesn't always happen. Probably in your second or third year, you might be able to land an internship. But it does happen. I've seen a lot of companies hiring students. But even if it wasn't that, even if it was a retail job, working at Baker's Delight like I did, or working in hospitality at a cafe, I think it's very important.
Yep. You're right.
Yeah, from the
Absolutely.
self-sustaining point of
So
view.
I had this incident, and I've heard that, like, when you graduate and finish 3 years of study, then you don't have, you have a zero experience. But if you, simultaneously work part time, then you have, you gain experience plus you finish your study. So end of that 3 years, you have 3 years experience and a bachelor's degree. So that make whole new sense, isn't it? So
It
because
does.
I had no idea about this. So nobody told me when I was young.
It's
So
good.
yeah, that's great. That's why I'm trying to raise this awareness amongst the youngsters, that yes, if you have an opportunity, why not do it? And let's say schooling. What about like in Australia? We have seen the culture like kids when they turn 12 or 14, they just go to McDonald's or any other retails to work. Do you promote that either?
I think it's important. I think it's very important. Kids need to learn the value of money, because especially if you come from Indian families, for example, my parents did their best to fulfill every need or want, for that matter, that I had. Sometimes to the point of whether there's money in the bank or not, they'll do it. Um, we were lucky in that we had seen them struggle at the start, so we were still money conscious. We were very careful about what to ask our parents. A lot of the kids I see now, I don't know their backgrounds, but a lot of kids are privileged, because their parents obviously want to give out of the love in their heart. They want to do the best for their kid. Their child gets everything they want. They put their finger on. Some parents can't afford to do that. And imagine those kids that if your parents can't afford to do that, and they're competing with privileged kids. Um, I think just as a society in general, we need to teach our kids the value of money. So having a job when you are legally allowed to have a job, I think is very good. Yeah, it makes them more independent, makes them more money conscious. They realize the value of money. Yeah, it's good. In fact, you know what? Here, people even start charging rent from their kids after a certain age. I'm not. Well, I've seen people do it. Once their kids are over the age of 16 or 18, if you're still living at home, they start charging rent. It's not for any other reason. It's to teach them value of money. I don't know if I would do it. My kids are too young to think about that at this point. It's one of those things. I think the thinking behind it is make them independent, make them realize the value of money.
Realize what is the value of money, and they have to get into that phase, whether they like it or not. They have to get into that phase, paying rent
Right.
or paying mortgages. Right now, absolutely good learning.
And
And
you know what? It's
see,
better
yes,
that you sort of hold their hand through that process of when they start getting money, because sometimes, um, someone gets too much money, depending on the kid, they might even think, oh, I've got $50 extra, let me go spend it. If you've got your
yes,
parent holding your hand and actually teaching you, better, this is how you use your money.
correct.
Save a portion of it, spend a portion of it, whatever. Save for something that you want. It really grooms them. It's a
Yeah,
life skill.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely right. So it's money education. You're trying to say, right? That you
Yeah.
have to educate your kids about the value of the money and any financial education. So, okay, let me ask you this: do we teach our kids, or have you got your own financial training from your parents, or you learn from the market?
A lot of the financial training came from my parents.
Oh, great.
So they have always taught me to be careful with the money. In fact, to give you a bit of a story, when I first started working, the very first thing I wanted to buy was a car. And we came from a household, there was four of us. We already had two cars. And I said to my dad, I want to buy a car. And he said to me, he didn't say anything. He said, let's go to this person's office. So we went to the person's office. He said, you know what? The saving that you have, instead of buying a depreciating asset, let's buy you an apartment. The best advice I got, because given today's condition, there's a property I bought 20 years ago that has really appreciated in value. And there's things like that, little things like that. Just, you need to have a certain percentage that you need to save for a rainy day. Things like that. So there was a lot of that was inbuilt into us. A lot of it came from watching our parents struggle in the early days when we first migrated to New Zealand. And things like that. My dad had to take a serious pay cut to move. We moved for health reasons.
Right.
My brother didn't used to keep well, so we moved for health reasons.
Mhm.
But I've seen them struggle, and so it sort of was built in. But I think it's a life skill.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah,
Yes, yes. And every parent should teach at least this sort of financial training to their kids. I never got it. So yeah, I'm not because I'm coming from a different background. My mom was a teacher, and my dad was, he was sick as well. So we had different struggles in my childhood. But yes, yes, this sort of financial training, that if you are, in Australia, if you are in new migrant or a citizen here, but still educate your kids for this sort of financial transactions or whatever the decisions they make. This sort of decision, rather investing in depreciating asset in place of buying an apartment. Amazing. If someone would have teach me that 10 years ago, I would be a millionaire or something.
Probably a millionaire now. I haven't got to that point yet, but eventually
Yes,
one day.
yes. So
Yeah.
now let's talk about the success part. So let's say, what are the ways? Like, you must be meeting a lot of entrepreneurs, like successful entrepreneurs, and they built their wealth, they built their companies and grow their companies like anything. So what could our viewers can take away from today's session, that how to grow, how to make big companies, or how to grow huge in Australia? What's your like view on that?
Look, for any business, getting that support network is very important. Be very passionate about what you want to do, because if you're half passionate about what you're doing, you'll never see opportunities that lie ahead of you. If you're all heart into it, you will see opportunities around you. And you have to learn, and not in the wrong sense of the word, but you have to become opportunistic in all the right sense. When you're running a business, you have to treat everything like an opportunity. Um, to grow a business, look, the quicker you resource a business, the quicker you move. So if you've got an idea that has taken off, support yourself with the right staff to help you, because your staff is the face of your company, right? So if you don't have someone who's competent in what they're doing, or if you don't have the right processes, your business is not operationalized properly. There are things that will hinder your progress. Sorry. So having the right resources, having the right network, and if you are of the mindset that you want to quickly build one business to another business to another business, work on one business very, very diligently. Okay, resource it, make it self-sufficient before you remove yourself and get on to the next thing. So that's what I see companies that are doing well, or entrepreneurs that are doing well. That's what they do. They work passionately for 6 months, 1 year on an idea. They resource it, and then they remove themselves, because now that company is self-sufficient to work. They move on to
Yep,
the next
yep.
one. And that's how
Automation is
people have built, 5, 10, 20 businesses.
right. Absolutely right. You're right. Absolutely. See, this is the key. I would say that this is the key, and a lot of people miss out on that. So yes, this should be the growth strategy, and that's coming from you. So I'm not certified to do that, but you are qualified to give this this advice. So, absolutely. Thank you very much for that great piece of advice. So moving towards the end of our podcast, this is the last section, and this question I ask to all of my guests. So currently, what is happening? Like currently, Australia has left out, like during the COVID period, Australia has missed out a lot of opportunities for migrants, while Canada has opened up their migration policies. They're welcoming 500,000 migrants every year, while we were restricting our migration policy, which is restricting to like 20, 30, 40,000 people a year, skilled migrant, I would say. Yes, other migration is there, family migration and all that, but that's a small part of the process. So if you have a certain strategy that get immigration department can adapt to attract more migrants, or maybe make as a country, make it as a more workable country, or maybe more skilled country. As in Australia, we are not that skilled, so if you compare with UK, or sorry, not UK but Germany or US, we are not up to that mark as a country. So what strategy Australia should adopt to attract more skilled migrant that can come here and make this country beautiful, or more impactful, I would say?
See, it goes back to marketing. And I'm going to just say the fundamental things here, because I'm not sure how it is in Germany or USA or Canada for that matter. Why does a student come here to study? The ultimate goal is to land a job and settle in Australia, right? Or we have young migrants that come here looking for jobs. The end goal in any case is that you want to settle down in Australia, right? I think where they feel let down, and this is only my 2 cents worth, is the infrastructure around it. So we are really good in marketing universities to attract students to come over. We're not so good at attracting talent. There are big companies that will promote within India, like Infosys, for example. That we have an opportunity in Australia. There's a new project starting. We need technical architects. We need data analysts, whatever the roles might be. I think as a nation, what we need to improve is, at large, we need to create that infrastructure around recruitment and job creation. There are a lot of opportunities, but there is a bit of a struggle as well. And that's not just migrant. Like I said, I've also struggled at the start to find myself a job. I think it comes down to creating that job market and not creating, I think marketing more, creating the
marketing more. Creating is already there.
And then closing those gaps around confidence. So why would anyone, leave India when they're doing so well, or any country for that matter, back home? Why would you leave your settled life back home to move to a completely new country, which is full of challenges, which is full of question marks? But you know what? Those are the issues we need to address. In project management world, we call it root cause analysis. And what I mean by that is you always see the issue at the surface. You never actually dig deep down to see what is actually causing that issue. So why are we not attracting the right talent? Because people are nervous about the change. Because maybe the system of immigration is not straightforward.
Oh no, it's not
there's a lot of that.
We try to make it as complex as possible, that if someone wants to, I've got doctors, I've got accountants, I've got IT, like fully highly qualified people, and when they look at, like, they become my client and they say, okay, Krunal, we have tried ourselves to get into this system and just to do something, but we couldn't do it. So let's say if the doctor or an engineer or an MBA or an accountant can't do it, what about those poor people, who just trying to find, like, trade workers? I would say chefs or plumbers or someone like that. For them, the system is so complex, so highly complex.
It is. What we're doing is we are doing very well to attract the student crowd. We're not doing so well to attract the skilled crowd. And that's really where we need to be focusing. I think there's a lot of nervousness in the local market as well. With any country, it's not just Australia, with any country, there's always that nervousness that, outsiders will come and take our jobs. But I say, look, if you've got two candidates, whether it's someone who's migrated or not, someone local, pick the one that has the more skills or that is better fit for a role, right? Sometimes that might be the migrant. Who knows? I think what we need to do, if I could give my 2 cents worth, is we need to do a root cause analysis and find out, why are we not attracting the right pool? And why is it so difficult? And really answer that question. If it's to do with confidence, and if it's to do with the challenges people are going to face, they're nervous about uprooting themselves and starting afresh. Those are the things that we need to support. Then we need to have that support system around them to make them comfortable.
That's great. Nobody spoke to me about this question like this, so it's pretty much intense. Like you just hit the root itself. So thank you for that. Okay, so thank you very much, Ruchi. Thanks for a very insightful session about having new startups and your business, and about your migration journey and everything, whatever the advices you gave it to the new startup businesses and all that. We cannot thank you enough for your today's time and the valuable information you have provided today. So thank you so much once again for joining us. And thank you. That's entirely, the pleasure is all ours. So thank you very much, and we hope you see you in the future. Please join us whenever you have time. I'm happy to chat about any other subjects. That's okay. It's not just migration. We can talk about business. We can talk about anything else, and we encourage you to join us whenever you can, and share your great knowledge with our audience. Thank you very much. Thanks for that.